Lacrimosa is a card-driven deck-building Eurogame, competitive game, 2 to 4 players. It also has a solitaire option, which you can explore if you want. I personally played the game only multiplayer with 2 players and 3 players, which is a good number of players. Gameplay sequential, you go one after the other. There isn't really much to do during other players' turns other than thinking about your strategy, seeing where they move Mozart. We'll see what that means, or what cards they buy. So I don't know that I would want to try with 4 unless everybody knows the game very well, and so it moves fast. So it's a game about the life of Mozart, where you'll be taking Mozart-related, music-related actions, such as composing music, performing it, selling it, and but ultimately it's a Eurogame in which you're trying to score points from a variety of sources. Many paths to victory for sure. Each player has a personal display, such as this one, where you're gonna have your little purse representing your income, which you collect each turn, and income being coins, victory points, and or resources. Resources come in 3 denominations, other than money. You have profiles, wheels, and inkwells, and there are 2 ways of representing them. One is by these cubes. So right now, for example, I have 2 of each. But at the end of each round, these are reset and go down to 0. However, the same resources may also be represented by these wooden tokens, which look very neat. Incidentally, you're probably starting in a sense that production values are really high here. But the difference is that these tokens are not discarded at the end of a turn, so you can preserve them from round to round, So that's important. Here you have a little reminder of the phase of the turn. Here you have an area where you will store these tokens that will be placed on the board to represent different parts of the Requiem. One of the things that you're doing is you'll be contributing to hiring people to write different bits and pieces of a Requiem, and you can hire 2 artists. So depending on which side you place this token on, that will represent different artists. We'll see more in detail what that means. But really, the heart of the game is in these slots here, where you'll be placing your cards. As I said, this is a card-driven game. You have your deck of cards. You start with a hand of 4, and each round you will play 8 of it. And each turn of that round, you will play 2. One you'll play on top, and if you want, you'll slide it in like that, making only the top visible, and one you will play at the bottom, leaving only the bottom visible. The actions that you play, the cards that you play on top indicate the actions that you'll be taking. For example, in this case, the first turn of this round, I traveled. The second turn, I contributed to the Requiem. The third turn, I either performed or sold an opus. Another kind of card that you have is indeed the opus, that doesn't go in your deck or in your hand, stays in front of you, and it gives you that reward when you perform it. You also turn it by 90 degrees to indicate it was performed. It can be performed only once per round, or if you sell it, then you trash it and you collect this other reward. So again, the actions: traveling, contributing to the Requiem, performing or selling, acquiring better cards, so upgrades for your deck. So that's the general structure, that everybody will take 4 actions. And, creating, performing, composing an opus, so acquiring an opus card. After everybody's done, you will have performed your 4 actions for the round. You will reset your cubes, remember that? And after that, the cards that you placed here at the bottom with these symbols visible will show you which resources and how much of each you'll get next turn. So you're setting up your little resource engine for next turn. I would have 1, 2, 3 of these, 1 inkwell, no wheels if that was my play. Now let's look at the board, which is where the effects of these actions actually are often resolved, because again, card driven. So the board looks really nice. It's vertical, so it's kind of hard to fit it in a single shot. But we have a section up there on top where we are placing, remember the actions that were available, where we're placing the upgrade cards that we're gonna buy. So these are the, I buy the card and I place it in my deck, simple as that. I collect an opus and I place it in my area face up next to the other opie. Opus, don't remember. This big deck of cards regulates, is also a timer for the game. When a card is bought from there, it is replaced by these ones here. The remaining ones slide down, because when you're acquiring a card, you will pay both the cost, which is on top, printed on the card itself, and also an additional cost possibly printed on the space. So for example, that opus right now costs a total of 3 profiles and 1 coin. This other opus, just because it's down on the in the sequence, only cost its printed value, doesn't have any additional cost printed on the board. So cards, depending on when you get them, will become increasingly cheaper, again, because the ones that are bought are replaced. First, the remaining ones slide down, and the other ones are replaced. Each round, you also have, as you can see from this strangely set up deck, each round also has a tile. So this is revealed at the beginning of round 2. This is the beginning of round 3. And these tiles have unique bonuses that apply to that round. So for example, here at the end of round 4, everybody who performed that action collects 2 coins for each time they perform that action. And there are multiple tiles for round 1, round 2, round 3, so these change from game to game, giving you more variety. The board is where we travel, where we move our Mozart piece, and we travel using the travel action, which I showed you briefly. When we take that action, we can travel as far as we want, but also more accurately as far as we can afford, because there are costs in coins that need to be paid. If I'm going from here to here, it will cost me a total of 2, because coins. And then once you're there, you can perform the action indicated on the tile of the place where you stopped, not every place that you traveled through. You pay the cost, which would be wheels. Remember, you can pay it by removing cubes or by moving down cubes from your display or spending tokens, and then you simply collect the cardboard token. Well, you perform what it says there, and then you discard. I can collect 5 resources. I can perform this action. I can collect 2 victory points, and so on and so forth. Some larger tiles will give me ways of scoring victory points at the end of the game. For example, if I contributed to these parts of the Requiem, we'll see what that means. I score 8 victory points. Remember, each opus, other than the starting one, has a symbol. So if at the end I have these symbols in my opus display, then I collect 5 victory points, and so on and so forth. What is also neat is that at the end of a round, these tiles are flipped to their gilded side if they're not there already. And if something was removed, new ones come in with their regular side face up. So if something was neglected one round, it's still there the next, it becomes a little more valuable, so the board keeps changing, which is kind of neat, I think. Now, the Requiem section that I mentioned, I keep talking about this Requiem. So, here we go. It's the bottom section of the board, where we will place 2 composers that we are hiring to compose the Requiem. There are 4 available in the game, so they work differently, so you'll have variety here. Each comes with its own little portrait, hello guy, and with a number of stacks for different parts of the Requiem. The Kyrie, the Sequentia, the Offertorium, the Sanctus, and so on and so forth. When you take the Requiem action, which is this one, you can take one of your nodes here and place it on a corresponding symbol. Suppose I decide, when I take the Requiem, to place this token here on one such symbol. That would work. Of course, it needs to be one that hasn't been occupied by somebody else, or myself before. It has to be a free space. When I do that, I decide that the side that it goes on, this side or this side, which, remember, correspond to different composers. This one, well, right now that one to that one, and the other one to this guy. Suppose I place it there and I place it this way, is that one, so I am hiring this composer to perform, to create that part of the music. I need to pay the cost associated with that tile, and then I take the tile and I place it on my personal board in the space that came from, and that may give me different advantages. For example, I collect one cube of that kind in phase 3 of each turn, which is again, when we collect stuff. If I place this one, I place this one here, I place it with that side on, then I need to pay. Then I am collecting this one from this composer. I pay this and I get that other thing. So you also have a little bit of a tableau building here as you're creating possibly a different engine of resources, although not all of these will necessarily give you something. Some have a blank back. Why is this important? Because this will be a major source of victory points at the end of the game. So you will perform actions that will allow you to collect victory points during the game. At the end of the game, you will collect victory points from more sources, such as, for example, scoring these tokens here that you collect. And again, a major one will be to look at these things. Each token. Now, as you can see, each section is associated with 2 numbers. The composer that contributed the most, suppose that this is the end of the game, then this composer contributed the most to the Kyrie. Well, each token of the composer that composed the most of that section is worth the big number associated with it. So right now, each of those tokens is worth 3 victory points. And here we have a tie, because you can see here we have a tie. Both composers are in the same situation, but suppose that is the situation at the end of the game. Now, each of these tiles, each of these tokens is worth 4 points, and that is worth 2 points. So the value of the composers depends on who has majority in each section. There are 5 sections, and some are pretty powerful. Suppose that this is the case at the end of the game. Not bad at all. And yes, it may be multiple players that contributed, that have tokens of different colors. That would be 24 points. Not bad, because that has the majority, and so each of those tokens is 6 victory points. Collect points from all possible sources, including remaining coins and remaining resources at the end of the game, and the player with the highest score wins the game. Lacrimosa is an excellent Eurogame, and it exemplifies all that is good about mid-weight Eurogaming. You have excellent components, rules that at their core are simple. At their core, you're just playing for actions and selecting 4 cards for resources next turn. But then implementing them leads to very subtle, very complex, very satisfying gameplay, which is satisfying also because it has an architecture. It's about building an engine of resources over time. It's about seeing your long-term plans coming to fruition. You have many paths to victory. You have limited luck. So again, we play Eurogames because we want to enjoy this challenging space of decision in an environment of limited confrontation, and this does that. This does that perfectly. Again, limited confrontation because You will maybe from time to time buy a certain card just so somebody else doesn't have it, but if you just do that systematically, you're probably not gonna win. You're gonna be mainly, and you should mainly be pursuing your objectives. Now, if I move my Mozart somewhere else and now it's more expensive to you to get a certain tile, again, maybe it's an added bonus that I realize that and I make you spend 2 extra coins, but that's not gonna probably change the outcome of the game. Mainly, I'm trying to build my own resources, my own engine of resources, which comes in several forms. You have several mini engines going on. The biggest one is the deck. There is a deck building element. In the early rounds, you may want to upgrade your cards, so get better cards and maybe give you, instead of just an action and some resources. Or the best ones, 2 actions. The opportunity cost that you're going to save there is just enormous. So you're improving that. You're trying to get the cards that you get both give you more actions, and maybe also when you put them at the bottom, generating resources for next round, maybe they give you also some victory points. See in that section of tiles you're collecting from the composers if you can create an engine there that gives you good stuff every turn. So many different angles, many different elements there. You have the area majority mini game around the Requiem because I want my tokens to be worth 6 points or 4 points instead of 3 and 2, for example. And so you're maneuvering there, and that's probably where it gets the one area of the game that feels really confrontational. But again, is only one of them. And the beauty is that in order to win, you need to do well enough on many scales in the Requiem and in collecting resources that give you victory points for free and in scoring those tiles at the end of the game and so on and so forth. So I really, really like all of these elements and that they come together organically. Gameplay, as I said in the introduction, is sequential, so not much to do during other players' turns, again, other than seeing what they're doing and see bad effects. Oh, now I have to spend more coins for this or that. Oh, they took the card that I want. But that's the one thing. Maybe be careful if you're going to play with 4 players and somebody's prone to analysis paralysis, then you'll be facing a little bit of downtime, but that's not fatal, because you can also play with fewer players. So, Lacrimosa, it looks amazing. All of those wooden bits and pieces, the cardboard, the art, the board, everything looks great. And most importantly, the game plays well. For somebody who enjoys mid-weight Euro games, this is definitely an excellent choice.